The pharmacist was punching something into his computer. He was working fast. "I need your federal ID number," he said to Racine. "Why do you need that?" McNaught demanded. "Dr. Racine is requesting Solumedrol. It's regulated by the federal government. I need his physician's ID to order it." "What do you mean, order? You don't have it here?" "This isn't a hospital pharmacy." The druggist was now so nervous there was more backspacing than progress in his typing. "Regulated by the feds? What does that mean? What happens when you enter that information? How long does it take to get the drug to get here?" "It's logged into the FBI computer in Washington. Once it's approved, I can have it express mailed." "Do me a favor, Mr. Drugstore." "Yes?" "Step back away from the counter. I can see your leg through the glass. If you step on a buzzer, I'll know." Racine glanced down and saw the pharmacist's gray trouser crease between a locked display of cameras, watches, and small tape recorders. The slightest movement sent a shiver through the formica. If that movement was not accompanied by backward progress, McNaught would know the man was up to no good. The hapless pharmacist seemed not to know what to do about his professional grin, as though it was a grenade he dare not release lest it blow up in his face. Claire was more worried than her husband, or at least she put less faith that the druggist would be shielded by his own foolish innocence. She went to her brother and began whispering in his ear. "None of that," McNaught commanded before pushing open the waist-high swinging door and motioning the pharmacist to lead him up the dais steps to the drug-lined shelves in the pharmacy proper. Since part of the waiting area was blocked off from view by the partition, Claire hesitated only a moment before resuming her whispers. In the waiting area, Paquette seemed surprised, like a sleeping man startled awake. Racine was not given the opportunity to hear Claire's secret. McNaught was waving for him to follow. Up to now, McNaught had used only his grim brow and Neanderthal tone of voice to convince the pharmacist he was a dangerous man. But when the pharmacist's smile finally melted and he balked at McNaught's peremptory manner, the kidnapper ever so slightly edged his jacket across his belt, allowing a fleeting glimpse of his gun, like a half-hearted flasher making his exposure seem more accidental than criminal. McNaught pulled an apologetic expression as he shuffled his jacket, again hiding the weapon. "Pardon me, I didn't mean for you to see, or to infer, but as a matter of fact, I am armed and extremely dangerous, but don't take it seriously. It just happens to be that way, that's all. Just think of me as a stray dog, a stray mad dog." McNaught studied the view of the store from the raised station. He had to strain up on his toes to see the checkout girl running merchandise over a scanner for the only customer in the building. He noted several diplomas on the wall. "You're a doctor?" "Yes," the pharmacist answered in a short, fearful gasp. "So you're not just—" He filliped the man's name tag. "Ed. Smiling Ed Brunsky. But that's Dr. Smiling Ed to a chucklehead like me, isn't that so?" The pharmacist nodded, then said, "I don't keep very much money here. All the larger bills go directly in the safe." "Why would that bother me, Dr. Smiling Ed? We're here to pay for your services, not rob you. Tell him what you need, doctor," he added to Racine as he pocketed the prescriptions. "At the moment, I need a thermometer." Visibly shaking, aware that McNaught was closely observing his every movement, Smiling Ed opened a drawer and found a thermometer sealed in semi-transparent cellophane. He handed it to Racine. Racine glanced at the label and handed it back. "An oral thermometer, please." "Oh, of course." Racine handed the thermometer to Claire across the counter. "Would you please take your brother's temperature?" Nodding, Claire broke open the wrapper as she walked over to Paquette, who had remained seated. "Please." McNaught shook his head. "I like a well-mannered doctor." He turned to the pharmacist. "Don't you, doctor?" "Are you sure you don't have Solumedrol, doctor?" Racine asked. Smiling Ed found breathing painful. He shook his head. You want an intravenous solution. 500? Yes, 500 milligrams with diluent. A complete IV setup. No, I don't have anything like that. What is it for? Don't tell, McNaught began, then cut short his own protest, as though momentarily forgetting he had already crossed the line. A cardiac transplant patient, said Racine. Well, I have deltazone. That's prednisone? Smiling Ed nodded. Oral? Yes, I have 5, 10, 20. Smiling Ed paused dramatically, comically, as though by increasing the dosage he could lower the deadly ante apparently raised against him. Even 50 milligram tablets. Racine thought a moment, then shook his head. That would be all right after the first year, but this operation was only a month ago. I need something stronger. You think your patient is... Racine nodded, rejecting, yes. Smiling Ed winced. Death was everywhere. Claire returned to the counter and held up the thermometer. Low-grade fever, she said. Racine turned back to the pharmacist, forgetting the man's plight as he concentrated. You said you don't have anything like that. Were you speaking of the IV? Do you have Solumedrol in another form? Please. I think we've had enough courtesy, said McNaught. Just answer. But it's for another customer. McNaught was relentless. You can get some more. He'll be coming tonight. It takes days for this to arrive. I mean, this isn't a hospital pharmacy. So you've said. Racine turned away thoughtfully, as though this was answer enough. But McNaught found the excuse ridiculously unacceptable. Get it. Please. Thank you. Smiling Ed shakily retrieved a small H-shaped container from the shelf. It won't do, you know. It won't do. You want it in an IV. 500 milligrams administered over a 30-minute period, Racine nodded. McNaught took the bottle and squinted at the fine print. Solumedrol, single-dose vial, 1 gram. He shrugged. It's the same shit you were asking for, don't you think? Not exactly. It's only the packaging that's different. Powder in the bottom, water on top. Here. He gave the bottle to Racine. Can't hurt, eh? If there's nothing else, Racine sighed, giving the pharmacist an apologetic grimace, it will have to do. McNaught made a noise of satisfaction, as though he had just earned his MD. Trying to ignore him, Racine asked the pharmacist for a hypodermic. While Smiling Ed rummaged the drawer, Racine pressed on the plastic activator, forcing the diluent into the lower bottle, then dissolved the drug in the solution by shaking the container. Are you sure that's all you need? Racine decided it might be a good idea to take along some prednisone. His throat was so dry that for a moment he could not talk. But he finally squawked, Those 50 milligram tablets you mentioned. He was fearful for the pharmacist's life. How McNaught treated the unhappy man would be indicative of their own fate at his hands. He broke the activator off the top of the container and sterilized the top. Then he tore the wrapper off the disposable syringe Smiling Ed had given him and plunged the needle through the center of the stopper. By the time he had circled the counter, Claire had taken a new bottle of alcohol from the shelf, torn open a box of cotton puffs, and swabbed her brother's arm. Paquette had become accustomed to injections over the last few months, and barely reacted when Racine sent the needle through his skin. Compulsively, Racine returned to the pharmacy dais to properly dispose of the syringe. Thank you, Dr. Smiling Ed. One last thing. As he had done throughout, McNaught scanned the store for potential threats. The crowns of a couple of heads could be seen near the candy shelves. No one else. Is there a door in the back that we can go through without setting off all sorts of bells and whistles? You can't do anything to me and get away with it, the pharmacist said. That wasn't what I asked. There's been a camera on you the entire time you've been up here. He spoke quickly, breathlessly, as though this was a speech prepared for a hostile audience. The video recorder is locked away in the back room. I don't have the key. If you do anything to me, they'll know. Ah. Smiling, McNaught searched the ceiling. The smile froze when he spotted the camera. The pharmacist had not been bluffing.